History has recorded rulers known for their eccentric, cruel, and often insane behavior, which was often a combination of the abuse of absolute power, mental illness, or the indulgence of boundless personal whims. In this video, we discuss the 30 most famous rulers who were known for their eccentric behavior throughout the ages. 1. Caligula, Roman emperor, ruled from 37 to 41 AD. Perhaps the most famous example of a mad emperor, he appointed his favorite horse, Incitatus, as a senator and intended to give him the consulship. He ordered his army to invade Britain, then ordered them to collect seashells on the beach as trophies from the ocean. He would summon members of the elite and their spouses to the palace and force them to watch him torture and execute random people. He was known for his extreme extravagance, cruelty, and sadism, torturing and killing people for his own amusement. 2. Nero, Roman emperor, reigned from 54 to 68 AD. He was famous for his persecution of Christians and his brutality. It is rumored that he started the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD and then sang and recited poetry while he watched the city burn, although this account is historically questionable. He killed his mother, half-brother, and first wife. He believed himself to be a great artist and forced the elite to attend his singing and poetry performances, which would last for hours without allowing anyone to leave. 3. Vlad III the Impaler, ruler of Wallachia, 15th century. The inspiration for the character Dracula in literature. He was famous for his method of torturing and executing his enemies by tying them up and impaling them on a sharp stake. He was known for his extreme cruelty even towards his subjects, as he punished minor crimes with horrific torture. 4. Henry VIII, King of England, ruled from 1509 to 1547. He was famous for marrying 6 times and executing 2 of his wives, Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard. He beheaded his ministers and close aides, such as Thomas More and Thomas Cromwell, when he became angry with them. He broke away from the Catholic Church and established the Church of England only because the Pope refused to annul his marriage. 5. Ivan the Terrible, the first Tsar of Russia, ruled from 1547 to 1584. In a fit of rage, he beat his pregnant wife to death, causing a mental breakdown. He formed the Oprechna, a private militia that dressed in black, rode black horses, and had a broom-like object painted on its saddle, and tasked it with torturing and slaughtering anyone suspected of opposition. He ordered the construction of St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow and then blinded the architect to prevent him from building anything more beautiful. 6. King George III of Great Britain, reigned 1760–1820. Unlike many on this list, his dementia was most likely the result of an organic disease, which scientists today suspect was porphyria. He suffered from bouts of hallucinations and delirium, where he would talk to trees and believe they would talk to him. He became intermittently unable to rule, leading to a constitutional crisis in Britain. 7. Leopold II, King of Belgium, reigned from 1865 to 1909. His actions were not insane in the traditional sense of the word, but rather evil and horribly organized. He colonized the Congo Free State as his personal property, not as a Belgian colony. He oversaw a brutal system of exploitation that led to the deaths of millions of Congolese, estimated at up to 10 million, through forced labor, amputation as punishment, and massacres for ivory and rubber. 8. Idi Amin, President of Uganda, ruled from 1971 to 1979. He called himself Lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the sea, and Africa the victorious. He was known for his erratic and unpredictable behavior and for issuing bizarre orders such as expelling the Asian community from Uganda overnight. He oversaw a repressive regime in which up to 500,000 of his real and imagined opponents were killed. 9. Empress Cixi of China, effectively from 1861 to 1908. Although she was a strong and cautious ruler, some of her actions seemed insane due to her tendency toward absolute tyranny and lavish exploitation. She was known for indulging in enormous luxury while the people suffered from famine and poverty. For example, she spent huge sums of money that were earmarked for modernizing the navy on building a marble structure in Kunming Lake in the Summer Palace, including marble boats that did not float. She imposed her control through manipulation and fear, and isolated her nephew, Emperor Guangxu, on an island within the palace until his death under mysterious circumstances. 10. Ottoman Sultan Ibrahim I, who ruled from 1640 to 1648, was known as Ibrahim the Mad. He was obsessed with furs, especially ermine. He ordered all palace pillows to be lined with ermine fur, and ordered lilies to be planted in the palace gardens because their scent calmed his nerves. In a fit of rage, he ordered the execution of all the women in his harem, approximately 280 of them, tied them in sacks, and drowned them in the Bosphorus. He was eventually executed by senior officials who were fed up with his unstable rule. 11. Chinese Emperor Yang Di, Sui Dynasty, reigned from 604 to 618. He was famous for his massive projects that drained the country and led to the fall of his dynasty. He ordered the digging of the Grand Canal, linking the north and south, an amazing engineering feat, but it cost the lives of millions of workers who were forced to work in harsh conditions. He went on lavish tours throughout the empire, with his imperial chariot pulled by thousands of servants. Cities along the way had to provide extravagant banquets, which drove many of them into bankruptcy. 12. Queen Christina of Sweden ruled from 1632 to 1654. She was an eccentric and controversial figure. She often dressed as a man, refused to marry, and had intellectual and scientific interests unusual for a woman at the time. She shocked her court with her unconventional behavior, such as refusing to bathe — she is said to have bathed only twice in her life — and sleeping for only a few hours. She abruptly abdicated the throne and converted to Catholicism. She moved to Rome, where she became a central figure in cultural life but remained eccentric. 13. Queen Joanna I of Castile, known as Juana la Loca, nominally ruled from 1504 to 1555. Although her madness was likely the result of her intense love for her husband, Philip the Handsome, and his repeated infidelities, her actions appeared insane to her contemporaries. When her husband died suddenly, she refused to separate his body and took it with her in an open coffin on all her travels for years. She would occasionally open the coffin to kiss her husband's rotting corpse. She became unable to rule and was imprisoned in a castle for a long time by her father and son. 14. King Christian VII of Denmark ruled from 1766 to 1808. He suffered from a severe mental illness, believed to be schizophrenia. His behavior was highly unpredictable. He could spend all night on the streets with his buddies, drinking and looking for trouble, and then show up at a council meeting in the morning. He was obsessed with sex and wrote a book about his sexual experiences. He became unable to rule, which led to power struggles among his entourage. 15. Francisco Nguema, Equatorial Guinea. This man was insane. He closed all schools and hospitals, banned the import of medicine, asked his people to treat themselves with witchcraft and sorcery, declared himself a god over his people, and banned the import of petroleum and oil needed to generate electricity. He was known for eating alone with 8 other plates on the table beside him, and would talk to the empty seats. In the end, he was executed by firing squad. 16. Ne Win, Burma. He ruled Burma for more than 24 years. He was very superstitious, as he used to bathe in dolphin blood. He considered the number 9 to be his lucky number, which led him to issue many denominations and coins divisible by 9. This led to the collapse and deficit of the economy, and the citizens suffered from poverty. 17. Rafael Trujillo, Dominican Republic. During his reign, the Dominican Republic experienced the worst period in its history. He appointed his son as a brigadier general in the army while he was still in high school. He offered bribes so that his wife would win the Nobel Prize in Literature, but to no avail. After that, he did the impossible to win the Nobel Peace Prize, and when he failed to win it, he carried out a massacre against his people, known as the Brasileira Massacre, which claimed the lives of 50,000 people. This oppressor was assassinated in 1961. 18. Sapir Murat Niyazov, Republic of Turkmenistan. He was the former president of Turkmenistan, which was under the Soviet Union. This president suffered from megalomania. He named all the major streets in the country after himself, and even the month of January. One day, when a meteor fell from the sky, he named it after himself. This man was so obsessed with statues that golden statues of him were everywhere. He wrote a book called Ruhnama, in which he talks about the traditions and culture of his country. Anyone applying for a job should read the information in this book. 19. Kim Jong-il, leader of North Korea, ruled from 1994 to 2011. He is the father of the current North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un. Despite being a cunning ruler, his public actions and the cult of personality surrounding him were eccentric. He claimed to have scored 11 holes in one the first time he ever played golf, a staple of North Korean propaganda. He was afraid of flying, so he always traveled long distances in his luxurious armored train. He had an obsession with cinema, owning a collection of thousands of films and kidnapping a South Korean director to make films for him. He imposed the Juche ideology on his people, which reinforced his isolation and cult of personality to an irrational degree. He would kill anyone who received foreign channels on their devices or surfed the internet, and he would kill all opposition politicians. He would execute anyone who fell asleep during official meetings. 20. Emperor Jean Bedel Bokassa, Emperor of the Central African Republic, ruled from 1966 to 1979. He was a caricature and frightening imitation of Napoleon Bonaparte. He declared himself emperor in an extravagant coronation ceremony that cost a quarter of the country's annual budget while his people suffered. He was known for his brutality. He was accused of cannibalizing his enemies and would beat dissidents with a stick decorated with a nail. He brutally suppressed student demonstrations, killing hundreds of children. 21. Peter III, Emperor of Russia, reigned in 1762. He was obsessively impressed by Frederick the Great, King of Prussia, with whom Russia was at war. Immediately after his accession, he withdrew Russian troops from the war and revoked all of Russia's games. He played with toy soldiers in his bedroom while his wife, who later became Catherine the Great, plotted a coup against him. He was so disconnected from reality that he didn't take his wife's threats seriously and ended up being overthrown and murdered after only 6 months of rule. 22. The Roman Emperor Commodus ruled from 177 to 192 AD. The son of the philosopher Emperor Marcus Aurelius, he was the complete opposite of his father. He was obsessed with animal fighting and gladiators in the arena, and he himself participated in fights, often against bound opponents or harmless animals. He changed the name of Rome to Colonia Lucia Annia Commodiana and claimed to have reborn the city. He ordered the beheading of a giant statue of a god and replaced it with his own head, depicting it as Hercules incarnating the emperor. He was eventually killed in a conspiracy by his entourage. 23. King Erik XIV of Sweden, who reigned from 1560 to 1568, suffered from severe paranoia that worsened over time. He believed everyone was conspiring against him, leading him to commit atrocities. In one bout of paranoia, he arrested the entire Steuer family of nobles and ordered their execution without trial. His behavior became so unpredictable and violent that his brothers imprisoned him, where he was later killed, possibly by poison. 24. Emperor Wanli of China, Ming Dynasty, reigned from 1572 to 1620. His actions were not insane in the theatrical sense, but rather irrational to the point of self-destruction. After a period of effective rule, he became strangely lazy and reclusive. He never left the imperial palace during the last 20 years of his reign, and refused to meet with his ministers or sign decrees. This complete absence of governance caused a complete paralysis of the bureaucracy, as vacant positions were filled and officials were unable to retire, which contributed significantly to the collapse of the Ming Dynasty. 25. Sultan Mehmed III of the Ottoman Empire ruled from 1595 to 1603. Upon assuming the throne, he implemented the fratricide law, which is the most horrific form of fratricide. He ordered the strangulation of all 19 of his male brothers to preserve his throne. He also ordered the drowning of all the pregnant concubines of his father, the former sultan, in the river to ensure that there were no potential rivals to the throne. 26. Sabah VI, Emir of Kuwait, ruled from 1965 to 1977. He was known for his eccentric and volatile behavior. He frequently changed ministers, dismissing more than 50 in 12 years, and issued bizarre decrees such as changing the colors of traffic lights. He was obsessed with hunting with falcons and took them with him on official visits, including to Arab League summits. His behavior became so unpredictable that the ruling family was forced to depose him in favor of his crown prince in 1977 for mental health reasons. 27. Al-Hakim bi-Amr Allah, the Fatimid ruler of Egypt from 996 to 1021 AD, is perhaps one of the most mysterious and eccentric figures in Islamic history. He issued a series of strange and capricious decrees, banning the eating of molokhia, which is still sometimes known in Egypt as the rejected vegetable, forbidding the sale of fish without scales, and forbidding women from leaving their homes or wearing shoes. Later in his reign, he ordered the killing of dogs in the streets and then ordered them to be honored. He mysteriously disappeared while on a mountain hike, which led to the emergence of the Druze doctrine that considers him the last hidden imam. 28. Shah Sultan Hussein Safavid of Iran ruled from 1694 to 1722. He was known for his weak personality and blind imitation of sheikhs and clerics, which led the state to the brink of collapse. He spent his time in his harem, or reciting prayers instead of managing the affairs of state. When the Afghans, led by Mahmud Hotaki, besieged the capital, Isfahan, he did not take any decisive action. Instead, he asked sorcerers and scribes to write spells to save the city. He eventually surrendered to the invaders and handed over the king's crown without a fight, which led to the end of the Safavid dynasty. 29. Queen Urraca of Castile and Leon reigned from 1109 to 1126. She was not insane in the medical sense, but her reign was a stage of chaos and turbulent passion that seemed like madness in her time. She waged a fierce civil war against her husband, Alfonso I of Aragon, who was also her cousin, and then against her sister. Her personal relationships were a constant source of scandal and conflict. She expelled her husband from the palace and continued the war against him while having an affair with the Count of Galicia. Her reign was a series of intrigues, dynastic battles, and emotional conflicts that exhausted the kingdom. 30. King Charles VI of France reigned from 1380 to 1422. Known as Charles the Mad, He suffered from recurrent psychotic episodes beginning in 1392. In one early episode, he attacked and killed several knights from his entourage, mistaking them for enemies. In one of his deliriums, he forgot he was king, his name, and his identity. He would flee his palaces and wander the halls, shouting that he was afraid of betrayal. In another episode, he believed he was made of glass, and he refused to let anyone touch him or move him for fear that he would break. His madness led to a power vacuum and directly contributed to the outbreak of the 100 Years' War and France's great loss in it. In short, these examples demonstrate that madness in government can take many forms: pathological cruelty, megalomania, religious obsession, destructive passion, or boundless vanity. The common denominator is that absolute power gave these traits the space to expand without restraint, transforming them into a destructive force. Important note: in many of these cases, historians today believe that some of these behaviors may have resulted from genuine mental or physical illnesses such as dementia, syphilis, or porphyria that were not understood or treatable in their era. Nevertheless, the combination of absolute power and personal turmoil is what created these horrific and intriguing biographies. If you've made it to the end, tell us in the comments who your most reckless and insane ruler is. And don't forget to subscribe and watch all the new videos.